About 10 million years ago, the ocean swarmed with beasts. As these creatures passed, debris rained down to the bottom, including errant shark teeth, which joined with pieces of volcanic rock scattered below. Scientists believe that these scraps started to grow in size as they slowly attracted trace metals found within the ocean's chemical soup, forming thin layers dense in critical minerals like manganese, nickel, and cobalt. For millions of years, and in complete darkness, those rocks steadily grew in oceans around the world. My name's Claire Fiesler. I'm a reporter and a scientist, and I'm here talking to a microbiologist who, along with his collaborators, has found something remarkable at the bottom of the sea.
Each nodule can often fit in your hand. And then as you get closer and closer and closer, you'd start to see different textures. Get even closer and you'd start to see the life on top of them. They're not just these barren bricks. They can also kind of be substrates for animals. There are worms that crawl on and in the nodules. There are little corals that can stick up. They're often centimeters tall, so they seem sort of negligible from our perspective. But these are the huge sequoias of the abyssal plain. This is what we saw, just like millions of this size and shape, just covering the seafloor. They're all over the place. They could not be more abundant. It's really just about looking closer, looking at it with a different perspective that reveals something amazing.
You seem a little hesitant to say like a phrase similar to, we found that nodules may be producing oxygen. Is there a reason?
The discovery is that metals on the ocean floor can create oxygen without photosynthesis. They're calling the oxygen created this way dark oxygen.
There's a reason why Jeff Marlowe is being cautious with me. His collaborators, Andrew Sweetman, Franz Geiger, and the rest of their 16-person team, published a study in Nature Geoscience that could rewrite not just what we know about these nodules or about the ocean, it could rewrite what we know about how life began on planet Earth. These scientists aren't the only people interested in polymetallic nodules. There's an entire industry that wants to suck up the nodules from the bottom of the sea for profit. In fact, the team's research was funded by the Metals Company, one of the leading firms pushing for deep-sea mining.
Through all of this data and all of our troubleshooting, we were able to conclude that the nodules or something inside and around them was producing oxygen.
Exactly like that. So that
is kind of the way science works, is it is confusing, it's messy. Through experiments and thoughtful analyses, you get at what the story really is. And I think we're really just at the start of that.
To make sense of all this, I called up an old friend, Andrew Thaler, a deep-sea ecologist who used to run the deep-sea mining industry's only trade publication. He's been tracking this stuff for years.
The reason we want to go mine the deep sea, the reason we need these metals, the reason we need these minerals is because we want to get off fossil fuels. And in order to get off fossil fuels, we have to rapidly electrify the world's power grid. Energy production through renewable resources means energy storage, and energy storage means batteries. And polymetallic nodules are, you'll see this all the time when you see any of the mining company CEOs give a talk. They'll hold up a polymetallic nodule and they'll say,
that is a electric vehicle battery. It's like a battery in a rock.
This is a Tesla battery. And they're not wrong.
The most profitable nodules are located in the Pacific, between Hawaii and Mexico, in an area called the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, or CCZ. For over 50 years, mining companies have been testing equipment and conducting environmental studies to try and figure out how mining could impact the abyss. Because nobody knows for certain how many years it might take the seafloor to recover. So I went to Woods Hole, Massachusetts to talk to Jason Chater. He's a federal scientist who studies the seafloor.
The impetus for working on nodules had nothing to do with nodules at all. So here is actually the data library. We were just looking for an area to study how the seabed responds to change over time. Oh, it's here somewhere. Actually, for this project, I'd looked for some maps and navigation data and just couldn't find it. And then realized that the original navigation records were untyped out, sheets of paper. I came across a museum finding aid from the Mariners Museum in Newport News, Virginia, that made reference to the ships that Deep Sea Ventures had used in the 1970s, late 60s, 1970s, and reference to the Blake Plateau.
The coordinates had been lost to history because Deep Sea Ventures went out of business just 20 years in. Other companies tried, none pulled it off. Mining the ocean floor never made economic sense. After 5 years of searching for the coordinates, planning an expedition, Chater and his team returned to the Blake Plateau off the coast of South Carolina in 2022 to rediscover a lost deep-sea mining test site, the oldest in the world, in fact, and see how the seafloor had changed.
As we said before, this was a testing site for deep-sea mining, and this occurred about in the late 60s, early 70s.
My first impression of that field, it's remarkable. They're just crops, like a crop field of nodules scattered everywhere. Some of the first views of the disturbance that we found definitely looked like just long train tracks through these nodule fields. Areas of plowed up nodules separated by open sediment with no nodules. And they just kind of kept going off into the distance. So we ended up with more than 550,000 photographs. What we're doing is merging them together to try and make a seamless picture of the seafloor. At this point, it's now 54 years. Some of those tracks look like nothing has happened to them. Like they would look like they just recently were made.
Are coated with ferro-manganese crust. In some cases, what's inside.
That looks like a dredge track in an abyssal plain.
You are the first person to be seeing these.
So that's no recovery.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really new data. Like, we know that recovery doesn't happen over decadal timescales. Like, I'm sure this is what everyone would expect to see.
Yeah.
It is pretty dramatic, though.
Yeah, it's one of these things where it's like, oh, this image could change everything, or it could change absolutely nothing because people don't understand it.
I mean, like, most people wouldn't have any context for what this is to begin with.
We're here at the largest gathering of ocean scientists in North America right now, in New Orleans. There are a couple different scientists here that are presenting on their own deep sea mining research, and so I'm going to be going in and talking to a couple people. And then we just wait till 4 o'clock to see what happens when Jason Chater presents his work at his poster session.
So this is it?
Mm-hmm. These are all the tracks.
Oh, wow. What's really interesting about the site is that there's a recent publication revealing the largest deep water coral reef in the world on the Blake Plateau. And it's about 20 kilometers from the site. Yeah. It's like right there.
Yeah.
So the very first time anyone tried experimental deep sea mining, they almost hit one of the biggest coral reef systems on the planet.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know. It took us another 50 years to know there was even a coral reef there.
It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I have no idea what it's actually going to be like when he presents this afternoon. Like, it could be the biggest thing at the conference, but I also still feel that it could be this thing that just flops. I don't know, the anticipation's killing me.
Whether it has major impact is not what we're after. We aim for it to be useful.
Basically to inform people of, it's not a perfect analog for the stuff that's going on now, but it's like, yeah, it does take a long time for something to recover, if it does recover at all. So,
but it's also the nature of science. It's kind of this accumulation of information and knowledge. Just because it comes out and I don't get a whole bunch of phone calls, it's not why, we do the work that we do, especially as an element scientist, because there is a reason for doing it. There's a mission, there's a purpose, there's a goal.
After just 2 hours, the poster session ended. 4 security guards herded the scientists out and turned off the lights. Chater was certain that scientists decades from now would see its value. That's what mattered to him. But for non-scientists, this unique view about human destruction in unreachable places may fade into history's footnotes once again. Chater remarkably discovered this old mining site in U.S. waters. But today, the nodules that most miners want to get at are out there in international waters, which are currently protected by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. It's a treaty ratified by most of the world's countries. The law says the international seabed is special, like the moon, like Antarctica. It is legally designated the common heritage of mankind. But there's a catch. Countries of the world can vote to open up the seabed to mining if they can agree on a code, a set of rules that would govern commercial activities out on the high seas. The organization in charge of these negotiations is the International Seabed Authority, or ISA, a United Nations affiliated group. It is currently meeting in July 2025 in Kingston, Jamaica.
The mining code that they're negotiating is the mining code for all mineral resources of the seabed in areas beyond national jurisdiction. So that's not just polymetallic nodules in the CCZ. That's hydrothermal vents on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. That's cobalt-rich seamounts on the Rio Grande Rise. It's everything.
So here's the thing. We've been at this for like 50 years, but right now we're closer to mining the deep sea than we've ever been before.
The future is metallic. But I think the better news was the election of President Trump. 4 days sailing from San Diego lies the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, where polymetallic nodules sit 2.5 miles deep on the seafloor.
They form like this rock in my hand.
They're in a part of the ocean known as the abyssal plain, and it's the ecosystem on our planet with the least life.
And you stated in the press that where you wanted to mine is a quote-unquote marine desert. You stand by those statements?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I do.
The abyssal plain is the largest singular ecosystem on the planet. But that doesn't mean it's devoid of life. The abyssal plain may actually be one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on the planet, but the animals that are dependent on the abyssal plain are tiny.
So when we get close, there's a lot of these little tiny hexactinellids or glass sponges, little spots. It's quite beautiful.
In this moment, science really has the key role to play. We have never in human history started an extractive industry from the position of understanding the environment first. That's never happened. The traditional arc of industrial development is we find oil in Pennsylvania, we drill as much as we can, and only 10 or 20 or 50 years later do we realize how much harm it's done. We've never had an opportunity where we get to go in first.
On July 22nd, 2024, the paper came out. And the fact that this came out in the middle of the ISA meetings into this kind of media and political firestorm was a shock.
Dark oxygen broke through. Delegates at the ISA meeting were talking about the research from the floor in the middle of negotiations. But almost right away, the metals company, which had funded the research, began trying to discredit the scientists. The metals company says dark oxygen is, quote, bad science. A spokesperson told me that the company's rebuttal is still undergoing scientific peer review, and the company declined to comment further.
I think a lot of the initial attention was like, we did it. We found this intriguing thing. End of story. But to me and my colleagues, this is the beginning of the story. And that's the next step that we have to figure out. Like, does it matter in the real world, or is it like, they kind of do this weird thing, but it doesn't really matter?
Yeah.
The consequences of being wrong either way are huge.
I remember when my editor at the Post and Courier first asked me why an audience would care about this story. The rocks are boring, the science is not sexy, but the unknown and how much we still don't know about the sea, that's what draws people in.
The quest for life beyond Earth is really one, when you get down to it, of life extracting energy from its environment. And that's the same thing we're studying with the nodules. So to me, it is the same thing. Those sorts of unknown unknowns are so hard to come across in science because it's often at the exploratory limit of our understanding. So that might happen in outer space. Those kind of first forays into new unknown habitats and environments are where the big discoveries can happen, where you reveal something you've never seen before. To do that at a part of our planet that is so huge, these nodule-covered parts of the seafloor are enormous. The fact that that was lurking in our own seafloor for so long is really surprising to me.
That's really what this story is about, and why dark oxygen broke through. It's not about the rocks, or how they're removed, or what they do. It's like, what else don't we know about our planet, or the universe? And can we imagine a future where we exploit for profit a place where we don't even know what we don't know?
Oh, you can see his little chelate hand, so his little claws. Yep. They're gonna see you reaching down, and he's probably cleaning his
those eggs.
Swimmerettes.
Are they what?
The blue things, or they may be eggs.
It does look like eggs.
What is that tube thing? Maybe a tube worm?
Tube, yeah.
Yeah, those look more like hydroids than anything else.
Here's this egg stuff, maybe again, or bryozoan that's behind him. All right, buddy, you're in the way. You need to move. I got invertebrates to look at. Come on.
Oh, he doesn't seem to want to.
Lots of tentacles in all directions.
He does not look like we've seen him.
Yeah, he looks similar to the helmet jelly, where he's got that bell with the red internals.
Yeah.
And then these tentacles that go up and down, but I don't know which kind he is. He's very neat.
Yeah, the pink looks like it was probably a reflection from our lights, but it looks like where he could maybe illuminate.
Yeah, possible. It could also be food that he's eaten. He's pretty neat. I like him.